Hey y'all, thank you for clicking on my channel today. So today I'm gonna be talking about Joseph. I want to be talking to the Josephs of the world. For those of you that's not that familiar with the Bible story of Joseph, I'm gonna give you a little quick summary, a little quick rundown of what his story is and how it could possibly apply to your life. So because I know it applied to mine a lot, but so, Joseph was one of 11 brothers. He was the son of Jacob and Rachel. They had 12 sons. And now Jacob had many wives. He had many wives and he had children with all of these wives. But with Rachel, he had two sons, and Rachel was his favorite. Rachel was his favorite wife. So naturally, he favored the kids that he had with her. So Joseph was his favorite, and it was not a secret amongst the brothers or anybody in the family that Joseph was the favorite, and because of this, the brothers hated him, and they were always, they resented him a lot, and they were always, teasing him and messing with him, just being mean to him all the time because their father, favored him. So, Joseph was a dreamer. He would have dreams, and he shared his dreams. He shared one of his dreams with his brothers and his father one day, and one of his dream was that he had a dream of all of them bowing down to him, and that he was going to be, king, like an important person one day. And they didn't like that. They already didn't like him. So for him to be talking about, one day y'all gonna be bowing down to me, they was like, oh yeah, now we really don't like you. So after that, like I said, they was always messing with him, teasing him, and just pushing him around, just being real bullies, just bullying him all the time because the father favored him. And so one day they were out working in the field or whatnot, and they decided, one of the brothers, Simeon, he was the main one. He was like, the one that would always talk the others into doing mean things to him. And he just came up with the idea, we should kill him. We should just kill him. They was all sitting around talking about how much they hated him, and Joseph walks up, and they were already trying to devise a plan on how they was going to get rid of him or not, or whatever. So he walks up, and they decided, to throw him in this pit, down in the ground in this pit. So they threw him in the pit and left him in there. He was in there for a couple of days or whatnot, begging and pleading for his life, and begging them to let him out. Brothers, please, why are you doing this, that, and the other. So a few of them started to feel sorry for him, and wanted to, wanted to let him out. But of course, Simeon wasn't having none of that. So while they were out in the field, along comes these Egyptians, and Simeon comes up with this bright idea. I don't even think it was Simeon; it was one of the other brothers. Comes up with this bright idea. Then we can't kill him. We can't kill. We're not gonna kill him. He was the one that was saying that he was not gonna let nobody kill him. Like, he didn't have no problem with them throwing him in the pit, but we ain't gonna kill him, sort of thing. But along comes these Egyptians, and he has this bright idea. Well, we can just sell him. They'll buy him. They'll buy him for as their slave, and they wound up selling him to these Egyptians, and that was the end of Joseph. Now, initially, when they threw him in the pit, they went back and told the father and the mother that he was mauled by a wild animal and was killed. So he left them with the thought of, that their son had been killed, his favorite. So, of course, the father was devastated, and stayed that way for years. And they had to watch their father grieve for years and years because he thought that, his son was dead. Like, imagine that. And whole time he not even dead. But he was sold into slavery and taken to Egypt, and there he was a slave. And because he was able to read blueprints and building plans, he sort of got he was sort of favored by the people that was over him, or whatnot. So and he became like the favorite of Potiphar, which Potiphar was one of the king's officials, one of Pharaoh's officials. So he became the favorite, and just found favor, while he was working as a slave, and so after that, Potiphar's wife um, found Joseph to be, extremely attractive. And, she would make comments about, his muscles and how handsome he was and stuff. And she was starting to like come on to him and kind of like threw herself on him. And he rejected her. He didn't want no parts of it because, for one, he was a praying young man. He was a believer in God, and he knew that it was wrong. Adultery. He wasn't married, but she was. But he knew that he couldn't be with her because that's still, a sin. So he rejected her, and because of that, she lied, made up a whole lie, and said that he took advantage of her, and went and told her husband Potiphar, which was like the highest official in the kingdom. And even though Potiphar didn't believe that Joseph really did it, he didn't believe it whatsoever, and he knew, what kind of woman his wife was. But because how things were during that time, he still wound up sentencing Joseph to prison. So while in prison, it came out that Joseph had the ability to interpret dreams or whatnot, and the king, which was Pharaoh, was having these dreams and needed some interpretation. And Joseph started interpreting the king's dreams, and because of that, he found favor with the king, and the king wound up making him governor of Egypt. So, long story short, as time went on, there was a great famine that hit the land and surrounding areas, and his brothers and his father and mother, the whole family, they were like suffering because they were starving. They barely had food to feed themselves, and it was a famine. So there was no food, but because Joseph had favor not only with the king, but he also had favor with God. God always blessed everything that he did. He blessed him when he was in the fields as a slave. They put him over the building plans because he was able to read the blueprints. And when he was in prison, the Lord blessed him and made him the king's favorite, and to the point that where the king made him a governor. So as this governor, he was able to, he came up with this great plan on how to multiply their food, their grain, and or whatnot. And so everybody from the surrounding areas was coming to them for food. So now back where the brothers and the father and them was from, like I said, they was going through a great famine and they barely had food. So one of the brothers came up with the idea to go to Egypt to buy food because they were going to starve to death. So all of them went, all 10 brothers went to Egypt to get food. And now, I'm just going to shorten this story up a little bit. While they were there, they wound up making 2 trips. The first trip, they had to go directly to the governor, which was Joseph, their brother. So the first time they went, they didn't even recognize him. They didn't even know that this is their brother, the very person that's giving them food, the governor over this land, the person that they're bowing down to and kneeling to, and basically, begging for food, although they were paying for it. But they didn't recognize him. So the second time they went back, it was all revealed that this was their brother. It came out. He wanted to make them suffer a little bit, which he did, but in the end, he forgave them all, and this, that, and the other. But I say all of that to say, a lot of us are Josephs of this world, and it's not to say that everything that we do, there's going to be favor, but a lot of times there is, and you can be going through some tough times in your life. I mean, like some really tough times, but somehow or another, there's favor in it. You always get through it, or you always find yourself rising above. And and I'm just going to give you a couple of examples of my own life, and because I consider myself to be a Joseph, I've always had the favor of God over my life. His hands has always been over my life, even when I didn't know that this was favor from God. Now, looking back in hindsight, I know that it was God, and it was his glory working in my life, and he had his hands on me. And even though I was going through some tough times, a lot of tough times in my life, there was always some kind of favor in it. And I look back on that like, my God, like he was with me the whole time. Y'all, God is so good. But just one example of, a time where there was favor in my life. When I was going through something. This was during a time where, I was going through some hardships. I had young children. I was a very young mother. And I was struggling bad. And our lights had gotten shut off. And, so they come to shut the lights off. But I'm noticing, while all the other lights had, went out in the house, there was this one light in my bedroom that was still on. I'm like, well, why is this light on? I'm pretty sure it's going to go off as soon as they flip whatever switch they flipping for this one too, but it never did. It never did. The light remained on, which afforded me and my family to still have electricity, even though it had been shut off. Now, if that ain't the favor of God, then I don't know what is. And, I just want to mention a few more situations. Every job that I've had in my life, you guys. And I just want to say that I have a high school diploma. I didn't go to college. I don't have a degree of anything. I have a degree of life, and that's it. But every job that I've ever worked, I've always been put in a leadership position. Every single job that I've ever had in my whole entire life. And some of these jobs required college degrees to have. But I didn't have that, and somehow I would always wind up with the job. And I say all of that to say favor, 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 favor. That's that Joseph anointing that a lot of us are walking around with. If you're one of those people that you always find yourself at the top, no matter what situation you was in, you could have wound up at the bottom, but before it was all said and done, you was at the top. Or a situation where you didn't see no end to it whatsoever, and you just thought that this was it for you, and somehow miraculously something happens and pulls you out of that detrimental situation that you thought would end you. Favor of the Lord, favor of the Lord. Anytime you're on a job and you're getting promoted, you're getting promotions back to back, you're getting raises back to back, that's God. That's God. That ain't them people. Them ain't your bosses. Them ain't the people that's over you. That is God showing you favor. And when I tell you I exceeded on every job that I've ever been ever worked, and was put into leadership positions without a degree when it was required. So, that ain't nothing but favor. The favor of God has always been on my life. And I know a lot of you are walking around with that same favor and don't even realize it. You're looking at all the hardships that you're going through. You're looking at all the roadblocks that you've had to go around, the hurdles you've had to jump over. And you're thinking that, that you must have the worst luck ever. Or, I used to say all the time, if it wasn't for bad luck, I wouldn't have no luck. And that is a horrible way to think. That is a horrible way to think. Sometimes God takes us through things because there's a bigger lesson in the end. He's actually building you up. He's training you for what's to come in the future. So, a lot of times, those hardships wind up being blessings in the end. And that's how we got to look at it. It's not always, you know, stop thinking that, you're cursed or there's bad luck or this, that, or the other. And sometimes, some of those things are in play as well. But a lot of times, God take you through things to mold you and sculpt you into being a better person, and he always gonna bring you out, but it's a lot of us that are walking around with that Joseph anointing. I am one of them, and I know you probably is too, and you don't even realize it. Start evaluating some of those times when in your life when you felt hopeless and you felt like you there was no way you was going to be able to come up out of it, and somehow some way something miraculous happened, or it took a turn for the better, or it's always God. It's always God, and we need to start realizing that it wasn't that he'll work through other people. He'll send somebody to you, to bless you. It wasn't that person, though. It was God. God whispered something on their heart, and that's why they came through for you and helped you in that moment. And that's how you got to look at it. God blesses us in ways that sometimes we don't even realize that it's a blessing, but that's exactly what it is. And sometimes you got to lose to win. Fantasia said it best in that song. I know y'all familiar with that song, Fantasia, Lose to Win. Sometimes you got to lose to win. And in that loss, you'll gain more. Because God gonna bring it back around. He gonna bring it back around, and he gonna restore not only everything that you lost, but he gonna double it. He gonna double it. So stop thinking, that you're exceeding in specific situations because of what you do. It wasn't you. It was not you. It was God. And it's that anointing that you have on your life. It's that anointing that you have on your life. And when I tell you, like the last job that I had, I was favored so much. And this is not me boasting, because it ain't me. The excellency that lies within me don't got nothing to do with me. It ain't me. It's God. It's God and all of his glory and his grace that lives within me, that lies within me, that shines out. It's him. He's always blessed my work. He's always blessed my work in my hands, and just the way that I show up in any position that I've worked. It was to the point that I was favored so much in my last position that it was uncomfortable at times. It was too much, and I'm like, okay, please stop saying my name. Stop, bragging over me. It just got to be uncomfortable, and I'm a very humble person, and I don't like people looking at me in a specific way, like she the teacher's pet or whatnot. I didn't like it. And to me, I didn't feel like I was doing anything extra. I was just doing what the job required me to do. But anything that I do, I always do it to the best of my ability. I don't have to do anything. I never have. So, and that just shows up as, excellency, being great at what I do. And, but like I said, I know a lot of y'all is walking around with that same anointing, and it is God. And you need to start giving him the credit for it, because it's him. Some people brag over, how good they are at doing this or good they are at doing that. It ain't you. It ain't you. It's what God has put in you, and you're living through him. You're living through him. So don't brag. Don't brag. You got to give him the glory. You got to give him the glory. So I just wanted to share that. I just wanted to share that with you guys, because, I know some of you may be out there going through some rough times or whatnot, but God gonna always show up. He gonna show up, and especially if you're one of his favorites. Some of you don't even realize that, you're one of his favorites. You're one of his favorites. And if you're one of those people, when things just started to, show up for you out of the blue, When you thought, when all hope was lost, you got some favor over your life. You got some favor over your life, and you walking around with that Joseph anointing and don't even know it. Don't even know it. Don't even know it. I've always considered myself to be something like a jack of all trades. Like, I feel like I can do anything. Anything. Like, literally, I feel I can do anything. You show me a couple of times, you walk me through it, I got it. I got it. And that's with anything, and it's always been like that my whole entire life. And again, this is not me boasting, this is not me bragging, because I already know if it wasn't for God, I wouldn't be half the person that I am. He showed up in my life in so many different ways. At times where I thought, okay, this is it. This is it right here. And boom, you know, he would make a way somehow out of no way. So that's all I wanted to come on here and say to you, Josephs of the world. Embrace it and just know that it's God. It's God and his favor that he has over your life. All right, you guys, you have a great day. Try God.